Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. Let's get everybody in here. How is everybody today? I know you're not going to all answer at once, but put it in the chat box. Tell me how you're doing. I'm excited to see you all. So, couple of quick things. Number one, today we're going to be talking about prepping for preseason. Now, yesterday, I don't know if it's still up, but if you haven't checked out my story on Facebook, and it may be on Instagram, you know how when politicians they run messages, and we see this all the time, where my name is Donald Trump and I approve this message, or I'm Joe Biden and I approve this message. Yesterday, my team put out a story about today, and I did not approve that message. If you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to go check it out. I'm sure somebody here on our wonderful My Free Life team will put it into the chat box, a little JPEG or whatever, but it was me sitting in my mini recliner, which many of you know I'm an avid Chiefs fan, and have a mini recliner that has contributed greatly to the success that the Chiefs have had over the last few seasons. And without my approval yesterday, they put a picture of me in it to market and share the idea of Wellness Wednesday. So I appreciate that, My Free Life team. And I am both excited and terrified at what you're going to do next. So thank you for that amazing message. So second thing, we are next week going to be talking about working through your own personal BS. Now, when I say BS, it's not what you're thinking. So BS is your behavior and your stories. One of the things that I am never endingly interested in and never endingly studying is how did people become who they are today? Because all of us have a mind. Your mind is the software, your brain is the hardware, and all of us were programmed. And I'm never endingly fascinated with the question of how do I help myself and others make the unconscious conscious? And we're going to do that through your own personal BS. BS stands for behavior and stories. So make sure that you tune in next week because we will be right back here at the same day, same time. Now, My Free Life is also coming onto the road. Our next My Free Life live session in person is going to be in the great Charlotte, North Carolina at the end of August, August 28th. It is going to be amazing. We're super excited. Yep, there's the registration link. So any of you that would like to join us for the full iteration, the full edition of My Freed Life, we would invite you to attend. And one thing I can share with you is that if you've taken the course before, every time you take it, it's like passing a grade. So if you've taken it once, you're now a second grader. You passed the first grade and you've moved on to second grade. The other thing I'll share with you is that we are never endingly pulling it apart and putting it back together, sometimes to the detriment of the mental health of my own team. And yet we're always looking to constantly and never endingly improve that system. And man, I got to be honest, I think we have finally gotten it absolutely dialed in and nailed. And the great Jordan Davis will be attending with me to co-teach it because Jordan has some amazing stories and some amazing perspectives and all the time that she's lived and the time that we spent together as a coaching client. She's going to be there to share that with us. So hope that you'll join us. If you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to Madison at myfreelife.com, and she can get you all the information that you might need. Now, today, we're going to be talking about prepping for the preseason. And, when you think about August is a season of transition. August is a season of, this is typically when, for most of us, we're transitioning from summer and back into the routine of school and getting ready for fall and all of those things. Now, if you're like Laura Wassinger and I, we don't love fall other than football season starting back up because we know what's on the other side of fall, which is cold weather, and I don't like cold weather. But today I wanted to talk to you about the little bitty things that you could be doing in order to prepare for the rest of this year. And I wanted to give you some perspectives from a coaching point of view and the way that I talk to coaches. Okay. Now, one of the things that I say to coaches often, and I want you to write the word gap, GAP, but do it vertically. Okay. When I talk to coaches, and a big part of what I do, and one of the greatest joys of what I get to do is training coaches. I love training coaches. I could do it all day long. In fact, sometime later this year, we are going to be launching the real estate coach school. So for people who want to build a career coaching real estate agents, we're building that into a whole other product, a whole other business. But what I share with them is that if you want to become better than 95% of the competition in the current coaching landscape, you only have to mind the gap. Now, the gap stands for first, the grow model. So next to that G, grow model, write that down. The second thing that you've got to nail, the second thing you've got to master is accountability. Now, when I talk about accountability, as many of you know, I do not mean what the vast majority of the world means, which is you punch them in the throat. It's always about production. Blah, that's not what I'm talking about. And so today I'm going to kind of demystify that word of accountability. I'm going to give you a different relationship to it. And then lastly, the P, you got to be prepared. You got to be prepared. So let's start with the grow model. Now, I'm giving you a 30,000-foot view. Typically, when I teach this, this is something that I take 30, 45, 60 minutes to go through, okay? And so you're getting a very quick kind of snippet to the grow model. And I want you to understand there are different iterations of the grow model. The acronym that I use is a little bit different than what other people use, but I have ordained myself with the ability to change things because I want to and they serve me. So if you look at this and go, well, that's not what I heard, I understand. This is my version of the grow model and the one that I've used in the 14,000 coaching calls that I have conducted. Now, let me share my screen with you here. So GROW is an acronym. And first, it stands for goal. Then it's the reality, obstacles / opportunities. See, that's the part that I've changed that a lot of other people, they call it options. I like obstacles and opportunities. And then lastly, willing. Some people will say way forward. So again, it does switch a little bit, but anytime we're coaching ourselves, anytime we are preparing for the next season, we got to be crystal clear about what is my goal. What is it that I want? What is it that I'm after? And the thing that I've realized, especially over the last probably 3 to 4 weeks, and I had a conversation with Madison about this, I'll never forget it. I was standing in the parking lot, walking into the hospital to go see my mom. And I said, you know, I went back and she even taught about this that day. I went back and listened to a classic book, and the book is called The Strangest Secret. And The Strangest Secret, just so you all know, and I would encourage you to go listen or read that book. It's very short, but The Strangest Secret is this: you become what you think about all day long. And the reason that we have goals, the reason that I have goals, and I believe that you should have goals, is that it's a predetermined way of thinking. We're going to engineer our thoughts around a goal so that we can become whatever it is that we seek to become. And I think of our mind as if it is a garden. And you're going to get to choose whatever it is that you plant into it. And a goal is just the intentional planting of a seed, of an idea, of something you want or someone you intend to become. But if you're not clear on your goals, then I'm going to invite you to stop, to slow down, and wait until you get clarity on your goals. And for some of you, if I asked you, hey, what is it that you want? It's too big of a question. And I understand that. And I've said this to many of you before, and I still think it's true today. If thoughts are things, right, then some of us can develop ideas or thoughts that we're allergic to. Just like you can be allergic to a nut, or you can be allergic to cats or whatever. And for some people, the question of what is it that you want is an idea that they're kind of allergic to. It doesn't bring out the best in them. It brings pressure, not creativity. And for those folks, if that's something you struggle with, awesome. Here's what I want you to do. Write down the things that you don't want. Write down 5, 10, 15 things that you don't want. Cool. Number one, after you do that, what's the common pattern here? See, I'm always seeking a direction, not a destination. Because if I can get you walking in the right direction, the destination is probably going to reveal itself. And then the other piece to that is if you just look at every single one of those things and ask yourself, what's the opposite of this? I don't want to worry about money. Awesome. So the opposite of that is you want to be financially independent. You want to be wealthy. Now, here's the thing. Wealth is a subjective word. How much wealth you need financially may be very different than what I need. And I've said this often, and I still believe it to be true, that wealth planning is a spiritual practice. You have to know a lot about yourself in order to know how much money you'll need. And see, I've had this conversation with Laura Hyatt. And the funny thing about us is that Laura and I, Madison and Laura Wassinger, are probably the same too. We're more comfortable sitting in a dirty canoe in a river somewhere in a mountain than we are in Ritz-Carlton. That's just how we're wired. That's where we'd rather be. And so when you know who you are, you know what you want, then you can get really clear on how much money you need. And so all I'm asking you to do is to reverse engineer your goal through the lens of what it is that you don't want. And you can typically get 5 to 10 don't wants. And yeah, this might take you a little bit of a time. It's a process. It's not Amazon Prime. It may not arrive to you in 2 days, but you need to be patient. But what is your goal? Now, second question is the reality. Where am I? See, if I get lost and I'm trying to drive to your house, and let's just say the maps on my phone aren't working, and I call you and say, hey, I'm trying to get to your house. I'm lost. I don't know where I am. And you say, well, where are you like right now? And I'm like, I have no idea. Do you see any cross streets? No. Do you see any landmarks? Do you see anything that you could point out? No. If you don't know, if I can't tell you where I am, then there's no way you can get me to where you are. So we should never endingly be asking the question, well, relative to my goal, where am I? And that way we can start to tweak and get clear. Like imagine if you got on an airplane and the pilot came over the intercom and she said, I don't know where we're going to fly today, but we're going somewhere. Now, some of you might get really excited by that. I would be terrified by that, right? We need to know where we're going and we need to know where we are. And see, then that's going to set up the obstacles and opportunities. And so 9 times out of 10, we don't have issues with opportunities. In fact, we live in an information-rich world. And what I mean by that is all the information you would need to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be is available to you. You just have to know what questions to ask. And the information isn't that important, by the way. If information was so important today, then one thing would be true. Google would charge you to search. They would have a per search model and they would charge you every time you search something, but they don't because the information, all the opportunities, those things aren't what really matters. What I have come to find in people is what is the obstacle? What is getting in your way? What is it that's standing in between you, where you are, the reality, and your goal? And what is it really? And see, this is kind of the essence of my freed life, is that I've figured out that what most of us call obstacles or symptoms who have underlying causes that we're never taught to observe, examine, investigate. And so listen to what I'm about to say. And because we're all guilty of it, I have been too, you are engineering solutions for the problem that isn't. It's like if you go to the doctor because you have a headache, the doctor's going to give you pain relief. But in our sick care system, we don't have a health care system. In our sick care system today, they're probably never going to ask you, why do you have that headache? What's going on? Something you're sitting? Do you have like tech neck? Do you have, are you eating something, right? We solve for symptoms. We don't solve for causes. And so much of what I'm hoping to get through to you today as it relates, because we're giving you the month of August to prepare, is that you will slow down and seek real answers, identify and solve the real problem. As I mentioned earlier, when I said that I love coaching coaches or training coaches, one of the things that I often encourage them to be paying attention to is pattern recognition, so that we can create problem identification. A problem that is correctly identified is 80% solved, because we live in an information-rich world. Now, willing, this is simply, what are you willing to do to bridge the gap, to overcome the obstacle, to get to your goal? And as I've mentioned to many of you before, and it's a question that never loses its luster, it's something that I came up with last year when the real estate market shifted and everything that we were doing stopped working. And I was looking at the goals and the things that the people that I was helping to achieve. I started asking a question: do your willings equal your wants? See if you want something physically fit and strong, you want healthy relationships, you want a profitable business. Every want has a lifestyle that is required to live it, to get it, to be it. And one of the things that I do my best as a coach, and this is something that I would encourage you all to do the best at in coaching yourselves, is when you want something, you only have two choices. One, you got to raise your willings. You got to raise the willings of what you're willing to do to get it, or you got to drop your want. But don't hang in the balance in between wanting something and being unwilling to do what's necessary to get it, because that is inner civil war. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir. I've said this before. Some of you need to hear this 10, 15, 20 more times. And I believe this to be true. Dreamers who don't do are some of the most tortured people on the face of the earth, because they know what's possible, but their programming won't allow them to do what they need to do, what they must be willing to do to get it. So you can look at the grow model in the macro of things. Like, you can look at this in the macro of the last quarter of 2024, the macro of things in 5 or your 10-year letter, for example. But I also love it because you can use it in the micro. You can use it in the micro of a week, of a day, of an hour, right? And one thing I want you to take away from that: you become great in big things when you become great in the world of small things. And if you start small, it's so much more easy, it's so much more manageable for you to get where you want to go. Now, the second part of this gap model is accountability. Accountability is taking ownership. It's keeping your own promises. It's understanding that taking responsibility comes before getting results. Here's what I want you to understand about accountability. I said this to a group of coaches last week. Holding a client accountable is simply the act of getting their audio to match their video. It's getting them, helping them to mean their promises, to keep their promises. Write this down and remember this forever. People who mean and keep their promises possess great power. And that's power that can only be earned. It can't be bought. And so accountability is not about punching people in the throat or holding their feet to the fire. Accountability is simply a means to teach us to mean and keep our promises. Does everybody understand that? It's also the bridge, I believe, between disciplines and habits. See, I think of disciplines and habits. A discipline is an action, a behavior that requires conscious effort. You have to think about it. A habit is a decision, it's a behavior that happens automatically. You don't think about it. Like for most of you, if you tied your shoes today, you did that in habitual nature. You did not think about, I'm going to take the left string and then the right string, I'm going to cross them. I'm going to loop this, or you didn't think about it step by step. You just did it, right? And one of the things that I want you to understand is that a discipline becomes a habit most easily through accountability. When there is someone or something that you are accountable to that gets you to take the action, even when you don't want to, even when it's low motivation, even when you want to give up. So accountability is about learning to mean and keep your promises. It's about learning to get your audio and video to match. And I believe that that is the very foundation of self-mastery, because when you learn to keep your own promises, you develop rock solid trust within yourself. And there is tremendous power in that. Now, this last piece, I'm going to skip that. This last piece is preparation. A true positive mental attitude comes from being prepared, understanding the realities of what it will take to succeed, and being very good at the necessary techniques. The more thoroughly you're prepared, the more positive you'll be, and the better your chances of succeeding. And so here's the thing that I would ask you. One, where do you show up in your life consistently unprepared? Where does it always feel like you just quite can't get there? What is that? What is that area of life for you? If you're one of our brave souls here today, who's willing to be vulnerable, put it into the chat box. But what is an area of your life that you feel consistently unprepared? I'll tell you what it is for me. It's for my mornings, because I typically like to squeeze every ounce of sleep as I can. And if I would just get up 15 minutes earlier, my whole day might be a little bit easier. And what I want you to understand is that wherever you're unprepared, you're probably missing a habit. You're probably missing just one thing that if you got that nailed, then it would set off a chain reaction in your life. Write these words down. This is what I'm all about in my life and in coaching people. Synergistic solutions. Synergistic solutions. A synergistic solution is a solution to a problem that when you get that problem solved, it sets off a chain reaction in your life. It's like if you go to the book, The One Thing, which I'm a huge fan of, I'm the head coach of Productive. I love that book. It's one of the books that had the most profound impact on me. But they talk about the domino. What's the lead domino? And so as it relates to the preparation of this and preparing for the next season that we're going to enter in, because August is a season of transition. What's the synergistic solution for you? What is that one thing that if you just got that, it would allow you to show up in your world prepared? You would stop with all the hurry. You would stop with the rushing. And your life would feel more like a dance than a well-orchestrated panic attack. And I would encourage you to really think about that this week. And to recap what we've covered here, for most of you, especially if you ever wanted to learn how to coach people, and by the way, you learn how to coach others by learning how to coach yourself. The best coaches are the ones who go first. They do the activities first, they put themselves through it first. But if you wanted to become better than 95% of the people out there in the coaching space, no matter the context, real estate, life, whatever, you just have to learn how to mind the gap. Grow model, accountability, and being prepared. And so I would encourage you to take the next 10 to 15 minutes. Don't hang up from here and rush off into your next activity or start looking at your phone or social or whatever. Take out a blank page, set a timer for 15 to 20 minutes, and write down, what's my goal? Where am I? What's getting in my way? Am I willing to do what's necessary? If not, why not? Maybe I need to get a coach. Maybe I need to get some help on that. Am I being accountable? And lastly, how can I best prepare to make this one of the most memorable, powerful seasons that I've ever had? So thank you all for being here today. Thank you for the opportunity to pour into you. Thank you for being a part of our community. I hope that I get to see you in Charlotte in August. And I trust that you're going to take what we taught you here today and use it so that you too can live freed. We'll see you next week, okay? Bye-bye.